speaking about Heathrow in 10 minutes is a task. I've been there 4 years now, and I still don't quite get everything that's going on at Heathrow. What I want to start with, though, is I think that planning for the future is absolutely the right thing to do, and you have a great opportunity right now to look into what Toronto is going to be in the future. But developing infrastructure and using infrastructure is what's been used in the past in most of the airports, and the London city is surrounded by many airports, all built for a purpose that was quite different than what we're using them today. They were basically built to protect the city against the German during the war. And after this, the airports were taken over by the civil authorities, and so well, we might as well do something with them, and we'll put some people in there, or we'll use them as for commercial aviation, which is a result of where we are today is a result of patch on top of patches on top of patches, and the airport system isn't working in London at all at the moment. Like, I don't think it works in many places. New York is a very similar picture, where 4 or 7 airports around New York not linked to each other. So what we started to do in London is a transformation that we're about to do. It's a bit late, but still, we're planning for the future. We've been planning for a future for about 30 years now, and without any avail, because the government has always refused to do anything we've asked for before. But transforming Heathrow is about people, because infrastructure is one thing. They're all being used by people, traveling public. And the traveling public, there's, in my career, I've seen 2 types of passengers. The one that are anxious because they don't know what the next step is, and the one that are anxious because they know what the next step is. You see people anxious at the airport. They want to go to the gate, they want to see the aircraft there in which they are going to sit, and they want to board in a easily manner. And think of it yourself when you're traveling. I hate to say that the mentality of the traveling public goes down to about 7 years old when they're traveling. Even though they have MBAs and engineer degrees and everything, they behave like kids because they're anxious. So what we are about at Heathrow right now is reducing the anxiety and think about people, passengers, and everything we do is about how our passenger are going to use our facilities. So in the future, so we're focusing right now on what are the needs of passengers. And no passengers wants to connect 45 minutes going from one airport to another by road, where we have absolutely no control of what's going to happen in the road system. I guess where I'm coming from, Mirabel is probably the best example of what not to do in terms of airport. I've cited the numbers this morning. Back in 70, you saw on the chart before, Toronto had about 10 million passengers in 71, Montreal at 7. So we were quite close one to the other. At the time, the forecaster were predicting to have 50 million passengers in Montreal by 2000. We had 8. So we were a bit off the mark, and by the time that... And there's one reason for this, is that Mirabel was built in 76. They split the traffic between 2 airports, and between 76 and 2004, Montreal grew 1 million passengers, just about. Toronto grew about 30. And by the time we got to all the passengers in one airport in Montreal in 2004, we start growing 1 million per year. So the benefit of connecting passenger, or connecting easy connection for passenger, is quite good. And the fact is, as well, is airlines are the second biggest customers of ours. In terms of volume, passengers are number 1, and in terms of service we want to provide at Heathrow, they're number 1 still. But the airlines have a different business model. They move people. We don't. We have infrastructure that don't move. We're not in the aviation, we're not in the transport business, we're in the infrastructure business. But as long as it works properly for the user, that's what we have to have in mind. So the plan that we have is to build something that is going to be easily used by our passengers. So what we have in Heathrow is this. 2 runways, 480,000 movement per year. That means every 48 seconds there's a movement, an aircraft landing or taking off, 17 hours a day. There's absolutely no space for error. The 15 minutes we are jammed into fog, the recovery mode is about 4 to 5 hours. We're not pleasing passengers doing so. And therefore, they are going to look for alternative. Dubai is eating our lunch, big time. You saw that the international traffic has overtaken, the Dubai international traffic has overtaken London. We have a 72 million passenger airport, and we anticipate that we can serve easily 130 right now, let alone what's going to happen in 50 years from now. So there's a lot of potential to do, and we've built, or the airport that we have right now, as you see, the numbers over there are the terminals, and even moving from Terminal 4 to Terminal 5 is not an easy task within the boundary of the same airport. So how we're going to use the infrastructure to do something decent with this. And as you can see, the middle part where you see the number 3 in there is Terminal 3, which is at the moment, well, number 1 is still operating until the end of the month, basically. But Terminal 3 and 1 are the oldest place that we have. And you can see it was probably planned without that much thinking. When you look at the infrastructure that we have around there compared to where we want to go, which is that kind of model. And that's the R3 plan that we're submitting right now, that we're waiting a decision from the government on, that that was taken away. And, well, any Brits in the audience? They have a special way of discussing and consulting. But this is our R3 proposal, what we're looking for. And you can see within, you have the R2 master plan in there and the R3 master plan in there. And the R2 is basically without the airport to the north part of that chart, which is what we call a toast track. So we are going to have a much easier way to operate the flow of traffic of the aircraft around the airport and that kind of stuff, which will ease off the pain for passenger. But at the same time, we have to rebuild the terminals themselves. But what we started talking about 3 years ago is not only the airport and the airport infrastructure, but the airspace infrastructure. And the airspace is just as much part of an airport that it's just as much part of the airport that the airport is. And an airport without a solid airspace infrastructure is basically a highway. You can do anything with runways if you don't have any airspace that supports the launching and the takeoff of the aircraft. And New York is a great example of this because of the congestion in the airspace. They're limiting the capacity of the airport. So we're building a lot of stuff that is for no use because we haven't thought of the process before or after, depending if you're landing, or usually the aircraft lands before they take off in most airports, right? And we're also thinking about the other aspect of the other end of the journey, which is home, or the office you're going to or from. And in that regard, in Heathrow and around London, if you've been driving in London, it's not the easiest place to drive to. And a journey from home to the airport is the average is all right, but the standard deviation is about 3 days. you don't know what you are going to do when you're leaving home, and then the anxiety level starts to go up. And once you're about an hour and a half into the traffic, the anxiety level is through the roof, and you haven't touched an airport representative or an airline representative yet, and you haven't been through security. So by the time you go there, you want to kill someone, or someone wants to kill you. And that's what we want to drive down. So we're working a lot right now, a very, very great deal with the rail and the rail companies or the rail infrastructure in London. And we want to have, well, the X is a good product. As far as I'm concerned, it takes you to downtown London within 15 minutes, and it's quite regular, it's a good service. It's working all right, but it's 15 minutes ride to go to London, to Paddington, and then you're stuck in either taking a cab or a very congested underground. And then again, your service that you're providing your customers is not that great from that perspective, because they have a meeting to attend and they're going to be late at that meeting because the traffic is a jam. So how are we going to drive people to, or get people to Canary Wharf, or from the Windsor sector, which is on the west side of the airport, where we have no train access at the moment. So there's a project called Crossrail in the UK right now that wants to connect Heathrow, or wants to connect the system or the infrastructure of London, around London, to Heathrow. And we're very much part of this. We want all the trains and all the tracks leading to Heathrow, because this is how we are going to take passenger from our catchment area, and we're working on this with the rail system. Now, what we also are doing at the moment is, because of the magnitude of the project that we have, the third runway project is £17 billion if we get the approval of this, which is quite a task to convince the shareholders, because Heathrow is also a fully private airport, owned by shareholders, not on the market. They're from their private equity board shareholders, and they want their return. And convincing them of spending £17 billion is we need to have a business case that makes sense. So what we're doing right now is we're working with we're getting the support of a lot of people, and the very first people we went to is the Chamber of Commerce around the country. London is part of this as well, but around the country, to get support for the project that we want to connect Heathrow to the world, so that we have the support of those airports to come to provide service to us. And then that's the second one on the, I guess, left-hand side of the screen. The UK airports, we're not working as much with the local London airports. We don't care about them that much. We are working with the UK airports so that we can have the connections, or the flights from the different places to fill the aircraft. The flights are coming to London, to Heathrow. And out of 72 million or 73.4 million passengers last year, we've discovered that we had 22 million empty seats in 2014. So that's basically a 94. If with the capacity that we're running at right now, or the numbers of people that we could handle in any given day, or a year, basically, is 92 million passengers. So we're running at the moment a 92 million passenger airport on good days. And good days are coming up in June. We are going to hit the 125,000 passenger per day. Multiply this by 2 is 250. 250 times 364. 365 is 94 million passenger. On good days, we're running at that pace. Why do we need to expand? Because we have basically 22 million headroom right now with the numbers of aircraft that we're having. Thing is, as I mentioned, the minute we have fog or something, it goes down the drain, and we have 4 hours of delays or cancellation, and people are not happy about this, so we need to build a bit more space to do this. And that's what I think is great about Toronto, is that you're thinking about this. Is where are you going to build that space in the future? We're also working with the manufacturer, the construction company, the explorer, and everybody else to get their support, saying, are you going to stay in London if we do this, so that we can have a catchment area area and some businesses to serve and to be able to work to do that 17 billion pound project. Construction wise, it's quite a challenge, and the proposal that we have is quite bold. R4, which is, we're not talking about R4 right now because this is the government. No one wants to talk about R4 anywhere. This is we would die if we were to talk about R4 in the UK right now. But the plan is to build a fourth runway eventually. But going to in that direction, we need to have we'll basically have to move the M25 and the M4 junction. If you know about London, this is the busiest network on the planet. And we decided to propose to move it. So the construction and the engineers and everything in there, and the tech company as well, that are a good base of what we're doing in Heathrow. Moving at pace as well. The community is quite important, as you may imagine. We are going to scrap a village or wipe a village out of the planet, doing our third and fourth runway eventually. So we need to work with the community quite heavily, and we're working with them with the aviation business, with the airlines as well, to provide some kind of quieter environment. As you may imagine, if you know here, London a bit, if you live in Richmond, which is the very, very high posh people of London, they don't like to be overflown on a 48-second pattern from 6 to 11 every day, including weekends. So we're proposing a lot of stuff with them, and the location of the third runway is quite important to them, and we want to offer the people living around, and again, it's about people living around the airport, some respite and noise insulation program as well. We're working closer in with the communities as well, and this is basically where the boroughs around where London is Heathrow is situated. And as you may imagine, Hillingdon, which is where the airport is sitting, has refused the third runway for 33 years. But they're on board with us right now, and they understand what's the benefit of the airport as well. And again, we're engaging with the communities. We want to provide more jobs to more people around Heathrow. And funny enough, when I got to Heathrow in 2011, it was about a year after Cameron has decided to scrap the third runway project. So we got there, and Boris came up, Montreal, the London mayor came up with his Island project, which is a 4-runway. It was a well-designed, well thought of airport, but 50 miles away on the wrong side of London. And we said basically, all right, if Boris has his island and we build 4 runways for them in 50 years, we are going to close down Heathrow because we don't need 4 runways airport in London. And the community said, what do you mean close Heathrow? So, well, close Heathrow. We'll do a shopping center or some kind of industrial park with this. We'll use the land and reassess the land for something else. And they said, then, no. I'm working at Heathrow. I'm living by Heathrow because I'm working there, and my family is living out of this. So I don't want to travel 50 miles on the other side of 30 miles of the wrong way. So it's basically an 80 miles drive to go to work every morning. They said, we want to keep Heathrow. Oh, tell the minister. And they did. And the minister that allowed to Heathrow to be another project or have a proposal on what we're doing with this. Our promise, or what we've presented to the community, to the airlines, to the board, to everyone that wants to listen to what we have to say, is we have 5 promises. We want to create jobs and apprentices. If you know the Brit ways, they work a lot with apprentices. So we get people out of the first year of engineering, we take them in with us, and they learn on the job while they're going to school at the same time. We want to produce 10,000 of them per year. Sorry, for the over that project. We want to create 120,000 new jobs, and we know that building 17 million project is going to be an addition to what we're already doing at the airport. So that's part of this. We want to connect every single economic region of the UK to every point of the planet. So we have a pretty good a pretty good range of places to fly to, with 2 runaways and 480,000 movement a year. If we get the 3rd runaway, we anticipate that we can get probably something like 720,000 flights a year, with much more Asian destination that we have right now, because we're limited with our growth. So we want to connect everyone in the UK to everywhere on the planet, and we want to enable the expansion of trades and export, which is quite important to the economy as well, and keep the CO2 level. As you may imagine, the environmentalists are quite involved in our projects, but we need to find ways to reduce the emissions. All of this, basically, we want to do with the communities, with everyone involved, but it's basically towards, are we going to be able to provide a good service for passengers so that they have an easy way from home to wherever they're going to, or wherever they're coming from back home, or visiting the place. The catchment area that we have right now is quite heavy. We have about 70% O&D. And the basic elements for any airlines that are flying with 22 million seats, empty seats in a year, is to fill them out. And the way to fill them out, if we don't have any use for O&D, is to connect passenger to the world, which is, as I mentioned earlier, which Dubai is doing to us, is they're eating our lunch. And we need to make sure that we have a product to counter that in the future. Thank you very much.